Hello and welcome back to Model Kit Stuff and part 2 of our new tool Airfix 135, definitely 135 Cromwell build. In the last video we built up the lower hull and put the suspension in, and then we stopped at that point. So we are now on step 6 of the instructions, which is construction of the road wheels. So before we do that, we do still need to treat the ejector pin mark and the little bit of sink that's in the tow hook here. So I'm going to do that with a bit of Mr. Surfacer. The one I'm using is, I have forgotten, this is the 500. It's just a case of putting a tiny amount on the end of a cocktail stick and then letting it shrink back. We'll need to put more on in terms of, you have to build this up with layers, and we'll have to put several layers on. The ejector pin mark's not so bad, so we might get away with two layers, but I think we'll definitely need more than that on the sink. So whilst we're doing the road wheels, we can get that layering up. Okay, let's put that to one side. So as we look at the instructions, the wheels get divided into 3 different types, A, B and C. A here being the front idler, B being the main wheels, and then C being the drive sprocket. So let's start with A, and we want G, 15 and 16. Okay, so that's the first 15 and 16 off. And I've noticed on this part here we've got some clean up to do. Don't know if you can see that there. So, you know, it almost looks like it's been cast from resin. So I'm not quite sure what that is, but we need to get it off. So I'm going to get one of my seam scrapers and we'll deal with that. First job. Yeah, and it is definitely attached. We'll have a look a sec and see if it's on both or whether it's just an anomaly. Have a look on the other sprue, see if it's that's the same on that one. Yeah, it's on the other one as well, so it's definitely, there's definitely some damage to the moulding tool there, or if you pick it up, it's minor, but it's definitely there, and it's not wanting to come out particularly easily. I need something a bit stronger than that. Get on with this one. There we go. Okay, right. So there's not much in the way of clean up on this, just the nubs where we've removed it from the sprue, to be honest. Okay, let's just test fit that. So there's a little location pin on the back to make sure you've lined it up correctly. Now, interestingly, the kit came with poly caps, but as I've looked through the instructions, they're not actually used. Right. Well, that fit is so good that I'm struggling to take it apart. That's really tight, that fit. There is actually slight, I hadn't noticed, but there was a slight bit of debris on there. A little lump actually moulded in. Still an extremely tight fit. Yeah. Got to say, the fit's been really good. Nothing difficult about this, it's been well thought out. So it's Sunday morning. Everyone is in bed except for me. It's 7:10 in the morning. It's nice to see that it's daylight outside. My first daffodils are open, my snowdrops are open. It definitely feels like spring is on its way. On Sunday mornings is modelling morning for the family. So the desk has been set up with my two daughters on each end. So my youngest daughter, Alice, who's 8, is working on the Spitfire, which is looking really good. So this is the new tool Airfix one. She liked the smiley shark's teeth on that. So she got that well, as soon as it came out. So when she comes down, I'm building one as well, and we're building that together, and that'll be her third model kit. And my eldest daughter, who was 15 this week, is into painting resin figures, so she's doing that there, and that is looking pretty cool as well. So she's big into Game of Thrones. We had to fast forward some bits for her, but yeah, so for her birthday she got some. She got the 1/16 scale King of the Dead figure, and she also got a resin Queen of Dragons figure. So she's wanting to get that out of the way as quickly as she can now, so she can get to this bust. But I won't let her rush it and ruin it. And she's got better discipline than me, because she's not wanting to start one till she's finished the other. That's not something I always do. Anyway, at some point they will be down and we will have a couple of hours of modelling as a family. Okay, so I'm not finding any issues with these wheels at all. No defects. Just being careful not to put a flat onto this in any way. But as it's the rubber tyre, you know, as much as we don't want to deform it, these things get damaged. Okay, right, that's the parts cleaned up, so let's just check what the fit's like. So there doesn't seem to be any location points, so you can have this orientated any way you like. There is rivet detail in the back of this, by the way, not that it'll be seen. And then the hub, it also goes on any way you like. Yeah, that all looks good. So there's a little ridge that this locates into, and what we're going to do is we'll just flood that with glue and then put the two parts together quite quickly. There we go, job done. And I think we'll leave some of the contactor on this one. There we go, that's the road wheel done. So whilst we've got one of each different type, let's just check the fit on the hull, and then I'll go and build these off camera. So that's lovely, no issues. And this idler wheel goes at the front. Fit of that is much more tight, so that's a really good fit. Now this has two little location pins, so we need to make sure that we get those lined up in that recess properly. I don't know whether I've got that in or not really, and the thing is, if you've not, it's not going to be aligned for the tank track. Right, that's not moving backwards and forwards, so I'm assuming I've got that in. That's quite a tight fit actually. But yeah, no issues there. No issues there. I am going to want to paint this before I put the wheels on. Well, before I finally glue them in place anyway. Okay, right, I'm going to build up the rest of these wheels, and then we'll get back to you. Right, let's pop these wheels on and see what that looks like. I will just mention, and it's just an observation, two of these have a small defect. Don't know if you can see that there. Looks like it's melted or something like that. One on each sprue, exactly the same. So, but they're slightly shiny, and it just looks like something hot's touched them. Strange, but anyway, it won't be seen, and it's not going to affect the fit, I don't believe. So let's let's pop these on and see what it looks like. So I had no issues at all with these wheels. One or two of the flat faces on the inside where there's some injector pin marks had a tiny bit of flash that just needed taking off to make sure that the two halves sat flat together and joined properly. So the wheel that's the most problematic to fit is this one at the back. Has two pins that just need to make sure you get them in the location. You can feel when they arrive in the location holes because you can't wiggle the wheel anymore. There we go. Okay. So these are all free running, and like I said earlier when we were constructing this, it wouldn't be too difficult to adjust this suspension so that you could have the wheels going over lumps and a bit mobile. Right, so I think at this stage the next logical thing is to try the little rubber band tracks and see what they would look like. Now I won't be using these in the final build, but it's good for continuity and completeness just to show how these go together. I haven't done rubber band tracks for a very long time. Now, it used to be, as I remember, they used to show you a little picture of you heating up a screwdriver and melting the pins on the back to hold it together. So first thing I'm going to try and do is just see how these go together. So there's a little hole that this tab needs to pass through. Because they're sort of rubber, they're quite flexible. So I'm putting the inner tooth through first and just popping that through and then pressing that down. And actually that presses into the pin quite well, but the pin doesn't protrude out. So yeah. Now, as I remember, what I used to do is I used to always have the join on the bottom underneath one of the road wheels. There is quite a bit of, there's a bit of flash around these front ones, but just be mindful that some of this is actually not flash, it's the shape of the track. It will need some cleanup though, so you do that with a sharp knife. Okay, let's have a go at shoving one of these tracks on. I remember some kits you'd put it on there and then you'd adjust it out, which was really handy. Yeah, so there we go. That's track on. Wheels are dropping off because the fit's that loose. So you can see here it's distorting, so there's various different ways of doing it. For me, I'm gluing that down on each one, and what you want to try and do is get a little bit of sag. Let me just between each wheel. I've seen people drill holes and put wire in and all sorts of stuff, but actually if you glue one at a time you can put the sag in and hold it in place. So there's enough enough material in the track there to be able to put the sag in. And then if you put the join under the road wheel, then it's easier to hide that join. Yeah. So just for the sakes of fun, we'll put the other one on. It'll hold all the wheels in place actually for now, so we can use that to our advantage. So let's just pop this other one together. So don't worry about damaging it, it's quite tough stuff that's quite forgiving. But we put it in the drive wheel first, and then pop it over the idler, and then just make sure you've got the teeth in between. There we go. Right, let's have a look at what's next. So we have just completed step 6. So as we turn over the page, we've got the link and length track. Now I'm going to do that towards the back end of the build, because what I want to do is build it all up, check the fit, then we'll strip it back down and paint it, and then as we're doing final reassembly, that's when we'll come and do the tracks. So, but we have put those on, the flexible tracks, and I've shown you what to do with those if you want to use them, and we'll keep them on now just to hold everything in place. So that takes us to step 8 and our first bit of photo etch work and a little bit of drilling. So let's get the parts out. Okay, so we have A1, which is the only part on the sprue. We have the photo etch parts there, and then we need E20 and E19, which go underneath. So E20 and E19. So we'll just nip them off. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave them on the sprue for a sec. And no 19's on the left. Okay, so we now have to take a look at this. Yeah, so as I remember, there was quite a lot of ejector pin marks that we need to deal with on this one. So that's a Mr. Surfacer task. I've not cut it there. Okay, and we've got a little piece to take out of the middle there. Okay, so we have some holes here that need drilling out, which actually no, let's just be clear. No, there's 2 holes here that need to be drilled out, and it doesn't tell you what size drill bit to use, so we will have to work that out. And then these 2 parts are going here, and there's some ejector pin marks to get rid of on those as well. So let's just get the nubs off that side. So we've got some Mr. Surfacer work to do, and we've got some drilling to do. So let's get the drilling bit done first. So it's simply a case of finding a drill bit that looks to be the right size. Bit bigger than that if we've got it. Yeah, that'll do nicely. So I'm not sure what size that is. Just run it back through that way and make sure it's nice and clear. I can hear one of my daughters getting up. So we'll be putting this to one side in a minute. Okay. Right, I am going to clean this up and then we'll put Mr. Surfacer in all of these injection pin marks and the same on here. Before I sand that, I want to put some Mr. Surfacer in. Right, we're going to get this filled up and sanded back and then I'll come back to you. Okay, so we've sanded down the Mr. Surfacer in the injector pin marks, and you can just about see them there. So once you've got sag on the track, they will be visible, so they do absolutely need to be filled. So we have filled the injector marks in these and glued them in place underneath, and then we've just test fitted this. So this isn't glued in at the moment, it's just put in, and the fit of this is very tight, so much so that actually struggled to get it in for a little while, and you can see here it's not wanting to sit correctly. There's a gap there. It does, if you push it in, it does line up, but it's very tight here and wanting to push out there. It's the same on this end here. So and what I found was you needed to clip the back in first and then push it along, and then the front sort of clips into place. But yeah, there's something not quite right there. At first I thought that these two parts were splayed out a little bit and that was causing the issue, but I don't think you could construct it wrong, so I don't believe it's that. So at this stage I don't want to take any material out, so I can't get that bracket to sit against the back wall, but we'll see how the rest of the build progresses. I don't know whether that's going to be visible or not. So our next part is the photo etch. So I've not really paid much attention to the photo etch. We saw this picture when we looked at the instructions in the box review, and it shows you the two strips here folded up, so I'd sort of assumed that's what we were doing, but now I've come and had a look at the etch. Actually, there's no bending involved, it's separate parts, which seems a bit strange to me. Why would you not have that as a part with a fold? So it means we have to cut them off and then glue them into position, which I think will be more difficult. So they've created a mountain out of a molehill for that, really, I think. But anyway, let's see how that goes together. So the instructions call out 2 2s, a 3 and a 4, which is all these strips here, and the 2s actually are the bits that go on the bottom. So I'm going to take one of those off first and just see how that fits. There does appear to be some form of line that I'm guessing the upright part sits on. Got a little bit of a Some more nub there. The rest of it is okay. So there's a very small recess for you to place the photo etch on. And that sits there perfectly. Okay. So before I cut anything else up, I want to glue that into place. So I'm using super fine super glue, just holding the part down in place and tacking it in for now. Okay. And I'm only gluing it from the top because I don't want anything getting in the way of putting this part in at the bottom. So that should be enough. Okay, so I've cut the next strip of photo etch off, and we need to fit that like so. So again, I'm still using this super fine super glue. I'm just going to hold it there. The glue I'm using has a cure time of 3 to 5 seconds. So I'm just going to hold it there. Okay. I'm going to just, so that's done on one end. I'll just hold it in place while we do the other end. So super thin CA works like super thin liquid poly. It just wicks its way in to the gap for you. This absolutely would have been easier if you could have just folded a single part. They've made this needlessly difficult. Yeah, it's a silly idea having two strips when you can just put a fold in it. However, once it's on, yeah, it looks alright. Right, I'll crack on and do the other one, which is exactly the same process, even though it's slightly different shape, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so the photo etch is in place. It does look much better than a plastic part would have done there. However, being able to fold that would have been infinitely more, would have been infinitely easier, and I think you'd ended up with a stronger part, because that joint is a weakness. Even though I've flooded it with glue and I know it'll hold, for younger or more inexperienced modelers, that could be a bit more challenging, but looks alright once it's on. Takes us to step 9. We've already put this in place, although it's not glued in, so we're now doing E11. So E11 just pops in here at the back. Fit is really good, like it has been throughout the build so far. Has 2 location points on each side that it just slides into. So that completes step 9, and takes us inevitably to step 10. Okay, so we're now building the upper plate section and the bits for the turret, seat for the turret. So
let's get these out and have a look at them and how they fit together.
Okay, step 10, I've removed all these parts, and what it's suggesting is that you glue these two plates together, which means butting them together like that. Well, that makes no sense to me. It makes more sense to attach them to that and then butt them together. So yeah, that's how we'll do it. We'll ignore the assembly of step 10 other than these side bits here. And interestingly, the back plate has two side plates, which means that these parts that we previously put on with the grills will be covered, and actually will take the wall up to the end of this bracket here. But this already has one side moulded on and another side that you then attach. Now there is another one of these for this side which suggests they're going to do a different version at some point with a different arrangement of hatches, so that'll be interesting. Right, I'm going to clean these parts up and then I'll have a look at the fit. So this top plate has little location lines that allow you to perfectly position this. There's a back plate here that goes over what looks to me like the exhausts, but I'm not 100% sure. So that just sits on top there really nicely, and then the side pieces just sit there, so you can actually see the vent, or the bottom half of the vent at least. So I'm going to glue this in place first, and then we'll put those into position around it. The detail on this top plate is really nice. There's lots of detail. There's some rivets and all the hinges. I do wonder if the hinges are slightly overscale, possibly. Not 100% sure, but they look to me like they might be. Okay, I'm going to get this assembled, see what that looks like. Okay, so I'm just progressing through steps 10 and 11, and I've come across our first fit issue. So the back panel has gone on okay, the two side parts have gone on okay, no problem at all. When I've come to fit this, on this side here, fit is lovely, but on this side it won't sit down square. Let me show you. So you can see there's a gap there and it just won't go down. There's no way of making that go down. Now when you look at this, there's a line there with two little slots in it, and those slots line up with these two lugs here. And when I look at it through this way, what I can see is if I butt this up to where it wants to be to close the gap, what I'm seeing is the lug is about here next to the hole, so the alignment is slightly off. So I think my solution is just to trim this back a little bit and widen the hole. So I'm just going to do that now and see if that solves the problem. And I'm going to do that with both of these. Right, let's have another go at fitting this. There we go, that's sitting square now. What is bothering me, however, there's two things bothering me now. Right, so that now sits flat. And what we can see
Show this to the camera. Let me just see if I can improve the light. Right, so if I show this to the camera, this part here, this bit here, should be flat with that wall there, and it's not, there's a step in it. So that needs thinning down to be flush with that, as it is on this side, and then that'll need filling. That should be flush. So that's one little something we've got to sort. I might take some material, there's a bit of a gap here, so I might take some material off the back and see if that improves the fit first. So we'll take some off that back edge. But I'm also a little bit concerned about this. That is really soft. So I think we need to put something under there to stiffen that. Yeah, I'll have a look at some solutions. I'm going to deal with that first, and then when I've sorted that I'll come back to it, and then we'll have a look at stiffening that. Okay, so I've resolved that fit issue now. So what we actually did was we took material off the back here. So you can see there's a little step. I've taken that off the back there, and what that has done is it's allowed this whole back face to be plumb against this mating face. So before we had a little gap like that, 1/4 milli, and now we've got nothing. So that's helped, and then we've taken a little bit off the front surface just so it's flush there. It will need a little bit of filler and sanding just to get rid of the join line, but that now looks right at least. Yeah. Okay, so what I want to do is find a solution to stiffen that without going into using white card. So I'm going to have a look at perhaps using a bit of sprue. So let me have a work out a solution and I'll come back. So I have a solution for this bending deck, and what I've done is very simply cut a section of sprue, which I'm going to glue in place here, and it's very simple. It needs to be the depth, the height of this on the inside, from the underside of the deck to the bottom of this bulkhead here, which is exactly 6 millimeters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue it onto the underside of here first, and we'll let that just make sure it's square. So we'll let that sit for a minute and fix off, and then when we fix this in place, we'll just go in and put a little bit of glue on the underside, and that should stop that bit of deck bowing. I mean, it may be that it's not an issue, but if you move in what I'm concerned about is it flexing when you move the turret, so we don't want that to happen. So let's put that in now. So that all now sits square. So I'm just going to run some of my little sprue solution underneath there. I'm just going to run some on this outside seam here, make sure it's capillaried through the length. And that is that, done it in place. So So that's our first couple of issues sorted. That sprue is nice and solid. That's all good. So next thing is to add a couple of tools. So I'll clean them up and we'll stick those on. So we have now got the tools added to each side of the rear tank hull there, which takes us to the end of step 10 and 11. So we've now fixed that in place, and I have now fixed this in place as well. So we've completed step 11 and we're going to wrap this video up at this point here. So we've, just to recap, in this video we have gone from step 6 with the road wheels assembly, putting them on. We've had a look at the rubber band tracks, and we're currently using those to hold the wheels in place while we carry on with the build. And then we've done the upper hull plate and upper hull construction. So in the next video we will start off at 12 here, and we're continuing with the mudguard assembly, exhaust cover, and starting to fit out some of the bits on the upper hull deck. Thank you very much for looking in. I think you'll agree with me that model's coming together really well. So other than the small little fit issue that we've had here, which was minor and easy to sort, everything's gone together like a dream. Yeah, so far so good. So looking forward to you joining me next time and we carry on with this build. Many thanks for looking in. Stay safe everybody. See you soon.